Hello everyone, and this is the first tutorial on how to build a 2D RPG using Unity. The goal here, we're going to try to be as simple as possible, very short videos, just for you to get a grasp of the concepts and then go in and apply in your own game. I'll put a link in the description, but you will need to download Unity. And once you download, you're going to download something called Unity Hub, which is basically it's going to hold all of your projects, it's going to hold all of the instances of Unity. So let's go ahead and click New Project. Once I click on New Project, I get to select where I want to place all of the folders and files there. So for me, I like to create a folder called Code, and this is where I kind of keep all of my projects. So I'm going to name it tutorial, and let's do it. Actually, here, I'm just going to put it in code. And here, I'm going to name it tutorial. Now, for the type of game, as you can see, there are a lot of options. I would suggest you just choosing here 2D, but you can, if you want to do a 3D game, you can do it in here. There are a lot of different things. There are even some projects that you can create that are learning projects that kind of are tutorials. I really like doing them as well. So anything that you can do to grasp the content and grasp the concepts of Unity, I would definitely recommend it. So let's go ahead and create the project. So as you can see, it's going to take a little bit of time, so I'm just going to pause the video until it's completed. Okay, so my project has been fully loaded, and I'm going to walk you through basically what this is. Here on this side, it's basically all of the objects, so all of the pieces of your game, they're going to be here. On this side, if I click, for instance, main camera, just basically what the player will be seeing, I get all the details, and this is what the inspector is. So I get some details as like there's a camera details section, there's a transform section, there's an audio listener section. So this is basically whenever I click, I get to see all of the details. Here on this side, I have the folders. So there is the assets folder that has the scenes folder. There's some other stuff here. And here in the console, is where any errors will be displayed. So that's basically those two parts right here. And on this side is basically your scene. So basically the world or your actual game. This is where you're going to build your background. On this tab, you have game. And if you click play, this is basically you can play and see what happens in your game. So like if I click play right here, I'm playing the game, but basically it's an empty project, so nothing will show. Now let's move into adding some background. So the first thing that you're going to need is some assets, right? So there are a lot of tutorials on how to create your own, and a lot of people are very artistic and they like to do that. On my end, I just like to do more of the coding and the programming, and this is what this tutorial is. So for this time, we're going to just download a free asset. I'm going to link the description, but it's a very cool sort of 2D 16 by 16 pixels tile map that we're going to be able to kind of build upon. So once you download, you're going to get a folder. And in this folder, you're going to have this file called Cloud Tileset. This is where, if I double click, I get to see this is where all of the little tiles that I need to paint my game will be provided. So let's go ahead and let's add them to Unity. I'm going to click here. These are my files, but I want to organize this. So I'm going to click here, I'm going to click create, and I'm going to select a folder, and I'm going to call that art. And that way I'm a little more organized on my files. Under art, I can even go ahead and create another folder called floors or background, whatever you want. And then inside this folder, I can go in and I can drag my cloud tile set. Great. So one step done. Now, once I click on my cloud tileset file, there are a couple of things that I need to do in order to use it in my game. The first thing you notice here under sprite mode, you can see it's set as single. That means that basically they're taking the entire file and they're making it one block. So I want to move it to multiple so I can break this down because there are more than just one block in this file. I'm going to change the pixels per unit to 16. And don't worry too much about it, but there are a couple of options to increase the quality. This is the filter now mode. You can set it to point or no filter. And then compression, I put it to none. Don't worry too much about this. This is just for quality purposes. Yeah, it's just a good practice. Let's click apply, done. And now let's break down this block into multiple blocks. So I'm going to click on sprite editor and this will appear. And now, as I can see, if I click through, nothing happens. If I click on slice, then I get to slice this. There's this automatic feature. I don't think it's going to work for this. So let's change to grid by cell size. And let's change this to 16 by 16. Now you can see that, oh, let's click slice. Now, as you can see, every time I click, and let me zoom in, I actually broke down this file into little boxes. So super helpful for us when we decide to start painting things. So I'm gonna hit apply and voila. If I click on this arrow to expand my file, I get to see that every single little block has been created and broken down for me. So let's get to work. Now let's add our background, and the way we do it is we click over here, a 2D object, a tile map rectangular, and I'm going to call this background. So basically this is the background of my game. But as you can see, this is empty. We need to basically, oh, and by the way, this is a good example. It's right here, back in the scene. So now that I clicked background, it's displaying it right here. Now let's paint this. But in order to paint this, we need basically a palette of all of those little squares that we're going to paint it. So you can think of it kind of like an actual palette. And this is basically what we have to do in order to paint our background. So I'm going to click Window, and I'm going to open up one more of these little tabs. And this window, it's going to be the 2D tile palette. And it's right here. If I click on it, I can drag all the way to right here. This is where I personally like to keep it. And this is the tab that's going to display all of my tile palettes. So let me click next. Let me click new. I'm going to create a new tile palette and I'm going to call it background. And I'm going to hit create. It's going to ask me for a folder to put this in. I'm going to put it under assets. I'm going to create a folder and I'm going to call it tiles. Again, just to organize your code. And once I click here, this is the file that I'm going to select. Great, so it's called background. Now let's drag and drop this file into the tile palette background. Again, it's asking me to select a folder. I'm going to select the tiles folder. I'm going to click next. This will basically import all of those little squares into my tile palette. Might take a little bit. Great, so now that my tile has been created, I can see here under background that all of my little squares have been added to my palette, which is really good. So I can click here and I can start painting my my scene, my game. A couple of options for you to be aware. This one will paint one at a time. So if I click, kind of go in and I paint it. like this. This one will do sort of a drag and drop where I can do kind of a ton of those. This one will kind of select a color. This is to delete. So if I do this, it's my eraser and etc. I think those are the main ones that you're going to need. Let's for you a couple of options. You can select more than one, so you can paint, more than just one tile. And then there's also, yeah, this it kind of looks weird. Like the first time I saw this was kind of complicated to understand. Basically, it takes a little bit of time, but eventually you get to build your whole game based on your experience. So basically, it takes a little bit of time. That's what I'm trying to say, to learn and to get good at it. One good thing to do is to always look for inspiration. So one thing that I always do is I look at an image that is done, so something like this, and then I try to go in and I copy it. That's usually one of the best ways to do it. And so yeah, let's kind of do something like this. Oh, let me use this one. And just add something like this right here. Great. So now if I click play my game, I get a scene that does kind of display partially what I've created. So I'm going to pause the video right here, and please try to do this. Remember, creating the background, creating the tile palette, and then painting it. And we'll see you in the next video. Thank you.